Let's start this video off with a joke. So, what does Off the Grid and KSI have in common? Both put out some dog shit a couple days ago, and now they're both in the thick of it, and everybody knows. On a serious note, let's talk about Off the Grid, the poorly optimized, yet still kind of fun battle royale. Now, all jokes aside, Off the Grid has some potential here. The limb system is cool, blending battle royale and extraction is a fun twist on the genre, even though I still don't really get the extraction part of it, but we'll get to that later. The game is pretty fun when it's running more than 2 frames per second, and that is no exaggeration. I literally at times was dipping to 2 to 9 frames during gunfights. Now, the gameplay you are seeing is the little bit of stable footage I had, but if you've played, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. The game caps out at about 55 frames on my PC, and it only lasts for about 45 seconds or a minute until I run into an enemy, and then it's right back to 9 frames. In its current state, this game is just not playable, bro. Now, for the people who will say, well, maybe your specs are too low for the game, here are the recommended specs for the game. Here is the base specs for the PC that I bought. Now, mind you, I bumped up the memory to 32 gigabytes, but everything else is the same. So again, I have to say, the game is pretty unplayable. Now, what confuses me is the game has been under NDA for more than a year at this point, and I know this was an issue during those tests. So I don't understand why they decided to launch knowing the game would only run on a rig a high-profile streamer or an oil tycoon could afford. So Stroop, you may ask, minus the optimization, the game is still fun? To that I would say, sort of. If you can pull a steady 60 frames per second and actually play without all the stutter issues, you'll find what feels kind of like a mobile port of a game. The animations, the sliding, the gunplay, all feels kind of generic. What makes it worse for me personally is the third-person shooting. Now, I'm no fan to begin with, so there's already a little bias there with that, so take that with a grain of salt, but it just doesn't feel that good, bro. Now, weapons with scopes that allow you to ADS in first person aren't bad. Sniping is fun, and if you find someone who owns a scope on an AR, it can be nice, but unless you've unlocked scopes through the market, you are forced to use this third-person shooting, and right now, it's rough. Which brings me to my next point. This whole extraction element. While it's a cool concept, it is unnecessarily complicated, or at least that's how it feels, because there is no explanation of how this market works. The game has no real tutorial except some dude calling me a cum bubble. That's an actual thing.
Regurgitated cum bubbles.
And then he goes on to explain how the BR works and these things called hexes that you can extract, but there's no explanation of the market or the in-game currency, nothing. You're just in the market looking at one AR that has like 1 billion variants for some reason with no idea how to purchase it. Now granted, with some playtime and trial and error, you could absolutely figure it out, but I'm trying to play a video game, not solve the Pythagorean helix Einstein Delaunay equation of quantum physical molecular gastrostructures. I want to make things go pew pew. I want to dip my nuts on people's faces. I just don't think the game should lean so heavily onto the extraction side of things like it does. There is a literal market in the market where you can buy stuff from other players who have put things up on the market. We're just doing too much. Extracting with hexes for upgrades and skins and guns, etc. is cool, but that should be the extent of it. This whole Tarkov system without a real explanation of how to navigate it is a big turnoff. For me personally, a lot of battle royale people know nothing about Tarkov or extraction shooters and their markets, so a market for dummies tutorial I feel like is paramount with this game. Now again, I know there are plenty of battle royale players that play extraction shooters, but it ain't as big as we all think. Most battle royale people aren't playing Tarkov and vice versa. People who like extraction shooters play these types of games. So for them, this shit will make sense. But if you're not, if you don't know this type, explain it, big dog. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Anyways, I'm gonna give the game some more time to bake, but from what I've played so far, this game has no real place in the market when you have Apex, Warzone, Farlight 84, Fate Trigger coming soon. Just much better, more polished battle royale experiences. Off the Grid, I just feel like even though the game isn't terrible, you should have waited, optimized, built some real tutorials before launching this thing. I feel like those two things would have gave many more people a better experience. But bad launches like this can be death for a game, bro. I don't know if this, I don't know if this was a good idea to put it in early access. I'm sorry. But that's my take though. Anyways, what do you guys think? Are you having fun? Can you actually play? Can you explain the market in layman's terms so I can understand what the fuck I'm looking at? See you in the next video.